Greetings, everyone. We're going to wait a few minutes for others to show up, so hang in. We'll be with you shortly. Okay, let's wait another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Okay, here we go, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting of the AI Community of Interest for Strategy Professionals. I'm Randall Rollinson, President of LBL Strategies and co-sponsor of the AI Community of Practice. I, along with Mark Bills, Transformative, and the Army Strategists Association, welcome you to today's session. We're very pleased that all of you could take time to attend the first of several monthly AI in Strategy webinars. They're always free of charge, and anyone is welcome. Our goal today is to establish a foundation that we can build on through the remainder of the webinar series. Here, we're going to establish a monthly forum where we can learn together about the technical revolution unfolding before us. Of specific interest to our team here is to gain a shared understanding of the impacts, benefits, and barriers that must be overcome to take advantage of this new reality. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Robin Champ. Robin is our VP of Strategic Foresight at LBL Strategies, and she's the moderator for today's session. All yours, Robin.
Thank you, Randy. The presentation today will run for around 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. This session is being recorded, but the recording will be turned off before the Q&A session. We will make an announcement when the recording stops so that you may feel free to ask questions in a non-attributional environment. At any time, you may put your questions in the chat. And at the end, I can ask the questions that are in the chat. You can also come on camera at the end and ask Mark your questions directly. Either way is absolutely fine. So today, I am very excited to introduce Mark Bills, the Managing Director of Transformative, a boutique consulting firm that helps organizations use collaborative intelligence to improve operating performance. Today, Mark will talk to us about the strategic implications of human-machine collaboration. Mark has more than 35 years of experience helping companies develop and execute successful technology-enabled strategies. He has led the creation of 5 new technology-focused business units, managed multi-billion-dollar innovation portfolios, and created over 30 new technology-driven products and services, some of which grew to billions of dollars in annual revenue. Mark also has 23 years of experience as an adjunct professor. He taught innovation management courses at the University of Southern California's Graduate School of Engineering and Strategy and Innovation courses in Loyola University Chicago's Executive MBA program. So with that, please welcome Mark Bills.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Randy. I want to echo welcome. Thank you all for participating. We're excited about starting this community of interest, and we hope you find it valuable. So as Randy referenced, I'm going to be giving you a kind of a broad overview of the field. And the idea is that we can establish a common vocabulary and a shared understanding. And basically today's goal is to draw kind of a map of a lot of different things and put certain points of interest, not all points of interest, on there. And the idea is that over time, we can decide which points of interest we want to visit and how long we want to stay there. So this is kind of going to be a broad but not terribly deep presentation. I hope you're okay with that. So the agenda today, we're going to start by just defining some terms. Collaborative intelligence is a subset of a larger field of human-machine collaboration. So we'll just talk about what all that means. And then we'll look at some generic applications and their strategic and market impacts. We'll then look at the stakeholder impacts. And we wanted to talk a little bit about the human state of mind, because for those of you who are following this closely, you can read that lots of people are a little bit wary of AI and intelligent machines. And so that has some implications for change management. And then at the end, we want to have an interactive discussion to kind of, just lay the groundwork for the future discussions. But what are the kind of some of the strategic questions that are raised by the arrival of collaborative intelligence? So everybody knows kind of about generative AI, but generative AI is just one part of collaborative intelligence. And as I said, collaborative intelligence is actually a subfield of something even broader called human-machine collaboration. So there are a bunch of subfields, and one of the most important ones is something called human-machine interaction. So if we want to work with intelligent machines, we have to have some way to tell them what it is our intent is and get them to understand us. And so there's a bunch of technologies below that. For example, like voice recognition, understanding what humans are saying. Natural language processing is actually understanding the meaning behind what they're saying. But it's not just words that we want to use to interact. So we want to have computer vision so that we can both show images, but also allow intelligent machines to monitor what we're doing, and gesture identification so that we can make gestures that they understand. And an emerging field, it's not actually called thought processing. I don't know what to call it, but there's several fields that are merging together where people are taking AI and training it on functional magnetic resonance imaging data, which is kind of pictures of how your brain lights up when you see certain things. And so we actually have real rudimentary applications where people are controlling drones and things like that. But one of the most interesting things I found is that Johns Hopkins University here in the United States, they used fMRI to train on words and a vocabulary a woman who had been mute for 20 years due to an automobile accident. And using just her thoughts, she was able to translate and speak to her husband for the first time in 20 years. So it's really interesting stuff. Now, I put this in here because I want to make kind of a general statement, which is all of this stuff is both really exhilarating, but it's also perplexing because there's lots of ethical and societal issues involved. So, okay, if I can read your thoughts and I want my employees to control drones or robots with their mind, I can read their mind. So if all of a sudden I think, wait, this employee just said, had the thought that my manager is an idiot. Oh, let's fire that person. Well, is that ethical? Is that really something that somebody's actually going to sign up for? There's a whole bunch of very strange ethical considerations. And so won't talk about them much today, but we will talk about them in the future. And the little dot there, these are just some samples of the things. It's a lot of stuff in human machine interaction. So collaborative intelligence, which I will define in detail in a couple of slides, it certainly includes generative AI, but it also includes things like computational intelligence, a lot of different things like quantitative finance is built on that, but so are things like Deep Blue, the chess machine. And there's actually a area of chess that has emerged called free chess, where humans and chess machines compete against other humans and chess machines. Digital twins are things where we model in a digital environment some kind of a physical world. And so this can be applied to anything from manufacturing facility design, which BMW has done with the Omniverse platform from NVIDIA, to startups in Silicon Valley are trying to create digital twins of humans using electronic medical records and other medical data to try to advance personalized medicine. So there's a lot going on there. And collaborative robotics are a bit different from industrial robots in that they're designed to work in tight spaces and actually collaborate directly with humans. There's other collaborative intelligence technologies, things like something called robotic enablement, which I won't get into. And then there's a whole bunch of other kinds of technologies like autonomous vehicles and wearables and things like that. So it's a really broad field. And then below that, there's a bunch of enabling technologies. So, natural language processing is really just a deep learning application. And this is not meant to be a hierarchy. So, for example, generative AI uses natural language processing. So this is really more just kind of a map of a part of the field. But large language models is an enabling technology of generative AI. And as you can see, that's a small subset of a whole bunch of stuff. So the first strategic implication is, we really need to monitor a lot of developments across a broad spectrum of things, so we're not caught off guard. So the futurist Ray Kurzweil makes the statement that below the surface, technologies advance exponentially in their power, and they finally get to the point where they explode into view. And so large language models is one of those that exploded into view. In November of 2022, ChatGPT was released. A month later, had 100 million active users. But large language models have actually been around since 2016, and OpenAI, the company that built ChatGPT, was founded in 2014. So yes, this is all new, and now we're scrambling to figure out what to do with it. But I think you're in a better position strategically to take advantage of these advancements if you've been monitoring them a little more closely before they explode into view. And now one of the other problems about all these technologies is they're on different development timelines. And so as a strategist, you're going to need to manage a portfolio of strategic horizons. So there's stuff that already could be done. So computational intelligence has been around for quite some time. So is digital twins. Generative AI is just now coming out. Some of you may know the term Industry 4.0, which is collaborative robots and Internet of Things for industrial applications and other things to further automate manufacturing. Won't go through all of these. Multimodal generative AI is just, right now it does text and imaging. Pretty soon we'll be able to do video, and there's people working on music. There's actually an application I found recently where people are taking a human singing voice, the people who can't sing, and using AI to improve their singing voice without actually changing their voice. Meaning it sounds like them singing, it's just that they sing a lot better. And so, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's now emerging. a little bit farther into the future, at least in my opinion, are things like autonomous machines. Now, I know that there's already autonomous vehicles doing like trams around well-defined routes and things like that. But I'm talking about letting machines out into the world and interacting with society on their own. I think that's quite a ways away. Quantum computing, and it's always just around the corner, but I'm going to say it's at least 5, maybe 10 years out. And some of the collaborative robots that I have as face, that's actually humanoid robots. So to the point where it has a human-like face, it can walk, it can move, it can see, it can understand, it can talk. So that's going to be a while. And then there's some stuff that people are talking about now that may or may not ever happen. Artificial general intelligence is one. There's a fairly robust debate going on about A, what that means, and B, whether it's possible. We might get into that a little bit later. And then there's other stuff. I just included this as an example of there's some really crazy stuff going on. There's a group, there may be more, but I know of a group in Japan that's trying to digitize the human brain and store it on a substrate with the idea that someday you'd be able to have thoughts and knowledge external to your mind that you could have access to. And the other application is if they ever can clone you, we could restore your mind, and then that gets into all kinds of other weird ethical questions. But the implication is that you're going to need to monitor this stuff, assess it. As it gets closer to becoming commercially available, you're going to have to start to learn about how to use it and things like that across all these multiple timeframes. So as you're managing your portfolio of innovation projects and things like that, you're going to have to kind of think of it across different timelines. And so what is collaborative intelligence in a little bit more detail? Well, the idea is that humans and intelligent machines work together to achieve human goals. Now, collaborative intelligence is a relatively new term. It was coined in 2014 by Dr. Susan Epstein, who's at Hunter College in New York. She's also on the board of MIT's Center for Brains, Minds, and Machines. And she had an insight. If you go back to the very founding of AI, which most people agree is what was called the Dartmouth Workshop in 1956, in the proposal for the Dartmouth Workshop, they said, we want to create artificial intelligence that mimics human intelligence such that the AI can do anything the human can do. And if you talk to people now and ask them to explain what they mean by artificial general intelligence, they say, oh, it can do anything a human can do. Well, okay, but if you're a human and you're at work and somebody walks in and says, hey, this is Sally, the new intelligent robot. And you go, okay, well, what can it do? Oh, it can do anything you can do. Oh, well, wait a minute. That means one of us is not necessary, and I'm pretty sure it's me, right? And so Susan had the insight that maybe we should change our focus and stop trying to mimic human ability and instead try to enhance its ability. So separate, kind of a separation of concerns, which is a software term. Let intelligent machines do what they do best and let humans do what humans do best and quit trying to put them in opposition. Now, the AI people don't think they're in opposition, but she makes the point that the inadvertent implication of trying to mimic everything that a human can do does in fact put this type of technology in opposition with humans. And so how does this all work? Well, the workflows, as I said, leverages the strengths of each. So what are intelligent machines good at? Oh, they're good at just raw computing power. You can scale it pretty easily. They never get tired and always do the same things the same ways. They can ingest just a ton of data, recognize patterns in that data way faster than humans can. And so they can sense weak signals. They can very good at following rules. And they're really good at optimization under constraints. But humans are good at leadership. So if Sally, the intelligent robot, shows up and says, hey, let's go do this, are humans going to be like, yeah, okay. I don't think so. Maybe sometime far in the future that will happen, but I doubt it. So humans are good at leadership and teamwork and emotional intelligence and sensitivity. And so one of the early criticisms of ChatGPT's output was that it wasn't culturally sensitive, and some people claimed it was racist and things like that. And so, humans need to monitor that and to make sense of it. And there's a subfield called responsible AI. Sometimes the acronyms are AI. The idea is to eliminate bias and increase understandability of the machine so we can kind of figure out what it's doing and why. And then it said humans are also good at things like intuition and judgment. And I don't know that intelligent machines will ever get there. Again, that's a debate that's raging currently in the field. But there's a second part of the collaboration, which is having humans help machines do a better job and machines help humans do a better job. And so, these intelligent machines help humans by improving productivity and generating a bunch of options and supporting decisions and all kinds of other things. And the humans literally train the intelligent machines, and they, one of the reasons that ChatGPT is so good is it uses what is called human in the loop feedback. So looks at outputs, humans score it, it gets better, takes that feedback. But without that human in the loop, it wouldn't do as well. And so humans need to direct and validate the outputs, need to monitor what it's doing so it's not doing something bad. And then it needs to liaise. So, FICO is something here in America where they use the credit scores, and it's a computational intelligence. But if you went to the bank and they said, oh, yeah, the credit bot said you didn't get the loan. Well, why? Well, I don't know. It's a black box. That's not a good answer. And so we're always going to need humans to understand what the machine is doing and explain it, why it did it, and how it did it to other humans. So, we'll talk maybe a little bit about whether humans will ever really be able to be replaced. I'm someone who thinks that's not true, but there are people who think it can happen. So the strategic implication, though, is that to leverage this effectively, you shouldn't just deploy the new technologies. I know everybody's running around like, how are we going to use ChatGPT? How are we going to use generative AI? But as a strategist, you probably want to step back and say, well, what are we trying to achieve? How are our processes going to change? And then what tools do we need? So I always, tell clients, buy the tool last, right? Unfortunately, when there's a shiny new thing, everybody buys the tool first and then tries to figure out how to use it. And you tend to get suboptimal outcomes. And so I, a long time ago, worked at Index Group and helped develop the re-engineering practice. I hope you're not holding any grudges against me. But one of the things that Mike Hammer wrote about in the really popular article that was in HBR was titled "Don't Automate, Obliterate." And his point was that networked PCs and all this other stuff completely change how we do work. So don't just, as he said, pave the cow path. Come up with completely new ways of doing the work. And collaborative intelligence is the same kind of foundational technology, in my opinion. And so don't just try to figure out how to do a better job of what you're doing. Completely rethink what you're doing and how to do it. And I think you'll get better outcomes. And so, what kinds of applications are there? So every consulting firm has a framework. I mean, if you look at different consulting firms, some have a 9-box thing on this, so some have 12, some have just a gigantic list. I try to be simple. I think that's usually better. So the first is just human performance improvement. And that's just helping humans do things better than they could do it before, or things that were previously beyond their capacity. And so one of the things that's an early application of generative AI is coding. So the software developers still understand the context, the business problem. The AI is not there yet, but it can help generate boilerplate code. It can do documentation. It can do use cases and things like that. So it's helping humans improve their performance, but it's essentially the job is still the humans to solve. So the second application kind of starts to blend. So there's optimized task sharing where the machine and the human work together, and you assign each of them the things that are best for each to do. So, because we're still focused on generative AI, I'll continue to use that as an example. So if you're, say, a professor and you want to write an article for an academic journal, one of the first things you have to do is go out and research the space. Well, okay, ChatGPT can give you a list of all the relevant articles, or at least most of them, in like 2 seconds. And then you can work with it to prompt it, like, hey, I want to write this kind of stuff. And then you can edit what they do and reprompt and everything. And so you're actually now sharing responsibility for writing the article. And there's an ethical issue, particularly in law right now, about whether you should mention that you're using ChatGPT or AI or generative AI in your work. And so that's kind of a happy medium between the two. And then the last one is actually just letting the intelligent machine do everything, and then you monitor its performance. And so particularly like in quantitative finance, and particularly with like high frequency trading, I mean, humans literally cannot respond fast enough. They can't track, 12,000 symbols all at once simultaneously. And so what you do is you train the AI. You have, for example, risk management and portfolio management policies that have to be adhered to. You put the thing under doing what is called paper trading, where you use live data, but you're not actually making trades. You make sure that the AI is following the policies, that the algorithm is actually working, and that it's profitable and everything else. And then you turn it on, and then you simply monitor its performance. And so that's kind of the spectrum. Mostly human stuff helped out with AI, to AI doing pretty much everything with humans just monitoring. And now there's a blend, right? So for example, you could have the computational finance thing generate, 500 trading ideas, and then as a human, you could actually select them and execute the trades. So, this is not like this is kind of a blending, or think of it as a continuum. And so depending on how you design the solution, it could fall in any one of these 3 boxes. So the implication is that, yes, we can do things better and do the same things differently, but we should probably try to figure out how to do different things. And so this is kind of a summary of a point made a long time ago by Michael Porter, who said that strategy is about creating differences that can be sustained. And he criticized what he called operational effectiveness competition, wherein the productivity frontier expands. And so the absolute improvement for everyone is better. Or I'm sorry, there's an absolute improvement for everyone, but there's a relative improvement for no one. And so, yes, do we need to figure out how to use all these technologies to reduce costs and things like that? Yes. But if all you're doing is using a platform that everybody else has access to, it's unlikely that just its use is going to lead to some kind of strategic advantage. So you're going to need to figure out, how do we, depending on if you have a resource-based view or activity-based view of the firm, how do we use this technology to enhance our unique assets, make them stronger? How do we maybe use an activity network, which is another Porter concept? How do we use this to make our activity networks harder to figure out and harder to replicate, so that we can maintain an advantage? And so, I think, and many others think, that this technology is kind of a game changer. So if you think about other game-changing technologies, one of the frameworks we use is like, what kinds of constraints does it eliminate? What kinds of capabilities does it make possible? What are the strategic implications of it? What other market opportunities are created? And there's a 5th one. I took it off because the slide was getting way too busy, but we can talk about it when we talk about strategic questions, which is, and who's at risk? What kinds of incumbents have a problem? So I won't go through all this, but like in the middle, the internet, it eliminated physical distance and physical capacity. So the day that Amazon.com launched, it claimed to be the largest bookstore in the world. And it clearly didn't have the largest by revenue, and it wasn't largest by store locations because it didn't have any. But you could pretty much order any book and it would fulfill your order. And so by eliminating a physical capacity, because everything was digitized, but it also eliminated physical distance, which meant that, for example, you were exposed to broader competitive space and things like that. Now, it enabled you to gather data in real time. So because it was a digital interaction medium, you could see what people were clicking on. Well, how were they doing? You could use cookies and you could start to amass the data in real time and then do really granular data analysis. So those are some of the capabilities that you needed. And that could create a data flywheel, so you could start to learn how to use the data to improve revenue, customer experience, things like that. There was the notion of value co-creation. So as I was on your site and I was leaving a book review or a movie review, I was actually contributing value, but I wasn't compensated. So that's a pretty good model when you get stuff for free. But one of the other things is, because there was a broader competitive space, that was problematic. There was an old print ad, I think it was from IBM, but I could be wrong. It's been so long ago. But there was a picture of a duck, and the duck was sitting at a computer working on its own web design. And it said, on the internet, no one knows you're a duck. And so part of the problem was, how do you validate who's real and all that kind of stuff? And now that everybody and his brother has a website, how do you find all that stuff? Well, that was where the other ecosystem opportunities came along. Search, validation, cybersecurity, protecting the data, e-payments to enable electronic commerce, and logistics to ship all the junk people were ordering all over the world. And so, as we think about it, and that's what I want to talk about when we talk about the strategic, or consider the strategic questions, to give you a minute to think about it in the background while you're listening. How is this human machine collaboration technology going to eliminate constraints, and what are its other strategic implications, and what other opportunities are there, and who might be under threat because of it? And so the next strategic implication is actually the title of this slide, which is because all those things are going to change. There's business models, impact on products, everything. The leaders are going to have to recognize it and manage it effectively. And so you can, disagree with some of my rankings on this stuff, but I think there's a pretty high impact on business processes, because if we do in fact redesign how we work, we're obviously going to have a fairly high impact on that. And there's going to be a new skills mix required. So how do you understand AI? How do you program all this stuff? How do you interact with it? How do you monitor its performance? How do you prompt it? All of these are new skills, and there's certainly going to be some skills that fall by the wayside, as happens in every technological revolution. So the skills mix in your organization is going to change. Strategy will still be about making differences that you can sustain, and either building unique resources or activity networks. So that won't change. But how you do it, and what your business strategy is, and what your product strategies are, will probably need to change to reflect what CI can deliver. And so it also will have some impact on your products, both how you develop them, but also in how to incorporate CI into your products. So, for those of you who use Google as a search tool, they've just released generative AI. But there's a lot of companies introducing generative AI. Microsoft has developed a product it calls Designer. So you type in kind of what your brand identity is and stuff, and it generates really basic, brochures and marketing content, things like that. And then because your skills mix is going to change and your processes are going to change, your job descriptions are probably going to change. And so how you staff and the people you have who embody those skills and that expertise is going to change. And therefore, probably your structure is going to change, not necessarily dramatically, but there will probably be quite a bit of impact. And I thought about making this one high because leadership is going to be really important, both to oversee all the transformation that's going to be happening within the business as we adopt this stuff, but also you need to resist pitting the technology against employees. And so, it's easy to, let's use this generative AI and get rid of 40 people. Well, that might be good, but what I try to tell people is, if let's say that you have 100 million in opportunity, in economic value that you could create every year if you did this right. But the first thing you do is save 10 million by getting rid of a bunch of people. You're not going to get the other 90 million because the humans are going to say, oh, wait, this is all coming for my job. And they're going to dig their heels in, and they're not going to collaborate with the technology as you expect. And so you got to be very careful about how you introduce this and how you manage the change. And we'll talk about that a little more in a minute. And so you're going to have to allay some of these fears that people have that AI is, in fact, coming for their job, and foster kind of a possibilities mindset. Now, some organizations already have that, but in the live release of ChatGPT-4, Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, said, hey, why don't you, as you use it, if you find some interesting things, tell us what you're doing, because even we don't know what it does. And so that's just one technology. But when you start, well, how could I use AI with collaborative robots, with computational intelligence, with some kind of embedded robotics and stuff like that? There's all kinds of things. And so as a leader, you're going to have to foster that. And then that gets to the issue of culture. And this, again, is variable, depends on where you're starting. It could be high, could be low. But you're going to, need to maintain a spirit of collaboration, both with the bots or whatever it is that humans are working with, but both also with each other. And that's actually one of the things that was an impetus to us to start this community of interest, which is also sharing experience across teams in the organization. Like, oh, hey, I used this prompt and did this, or we used a collaborative robot to do this, and sharing knowledge and experience across the organization. And so you want to start to engender a spirit of collaboration if it doesn't exist, a focus on human agency. So again, it's called collaborative intelligence for a reason. So we're not trying to have the machines take over. We're trying to make humans able to do things better, faster, and also do different things, and also improve their quality of work life by offloading stuff they don't want to do and all those kinds of things. But because it's changing so much and it's changing so quickly, you're going to have to start to experiment and try some stuff out. And this is where a lot of organizations stumble. They give lip service to, oh yeah, let's be entrepreneurial. And yet anytime somebody makes a mistake, their career suffers or they don't get their bonus or whatever. And so, you're really going to have to change the culture to start to have people, embrace this and be willing to fail at it, because not everything's going to work. Not every technology is going to develop on a path that you think, or things that look promising in both theory and under prototype just don't scale. And so you're just going to have to be okay with some of that. And there's a lot of cultures that, quite frankly, just are not ready for that. But there's also the impact on your stakeholders, and this is the other half of the implication. So one of the things that's happening is customers are starting to question service providers about, was this generated by you or AI? And there's an author I read, and unfortunately I can't credit him because I can't remember where I read it, but he made a statement that he thinks in the near future, tagging something as human-made will actually earn a price premium, just like organic and artisanal does today. Because you can position it as made for humans by humans, and I think that he's probably right. But the other question is, again, getting back to attribution, how is your value proposition going to change? If you're a lawyer and your customers know, well, all this junk was done by AI, why am I paying you so much? So there's some ethical questions about disclosure, but also about pricing and, you know, all those kinds of things. I know of, he's not a friend or a colleague or anything, but of a consulting firm owner who is using generative AI to develop things and billing clients hourly for what it would have taken a human to do it. I mean, that's completely unethical in my opinion. So there's a bunch of these kinds of things, and ethics is going to be one of the topics that we talk about in a future session. But there's also the issue of community. So, okay, let's wipe out all the jobs. Let's say you're in a town that 40% of the workers are employed by 2 large firms in the area. And those large firms just get rid of everybody. I'm not saying that's, you know, this is just a hypothetical. But what happens to the community? I mean, that's probably the engine of economic growth in the community. And so people are going to have to move away to find new jobs. And, you know, the community will disband. And the reason I bring this up this is an actual problem with a client that we have right now trying to decide what to do, because through an acquisition, they bought a company that had a fairly large technology development staff in a really small rural community in the Midwest here in the United States. And I mean, if we if we fire everybody and close the office, it will literally, all those people, as I said, will have to move. The community will be disrupted. So there's a lot of other things you need to consider. As you start to use AI to do supply chain optimization, and that's already a thing, but you know, how are your suppliers and longtime partners going to react when you say, oh, you know, we have all this data from AI and you're not performing and we want to end the relationship? You know, that's perfectly fine. But you know, there's going to be some human impacts and on these business relationships. And then the regulatory agencies, you know, they're trying to get out in front of it, but you know, the regulatory stuff is not necessarily in place, or it could be wrong, and so, or it could be opaque. So you're going to have issues about, well, you know, is this legal? Is it not legal? You know, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? So there's a whole bunch of other things that you have to consider. Now, you can still make the same decision. You can still close the businesses, but you shouldn't be unaware of the implications. It's okay to consider it and decide one way or the other, but I don't think it's okay to not consider it because you don't think about it. And so let me talk a little bit more about the human mindset now. And you know, tools and technologies have always helped humans achieve human goals. So back from millions of years ago, when you made the first cutting tool out of rock, you know, to fire and, you know, to airplanes and all kinds of stuff, the humans were always in control and the humans made decisions. But with AI, and particularly with autonomous AI, you know, the machines control themselves and the AI makes the decisions. And so that can be problematic. And while some of these are a bit dated, I looked at some of the newer ones and they were pretty much the same numbers, so I didn't change this. But you know, 70% of the people surveyed said they were concerned about AI taking over their lives, and almost 40% thought that it posed a danger to humanity. Okay, so if you think it's hard to introduce some, you know, process automation on your manufacturing line and dealing with the union, wait till you try to introduce stuff that might, in their mind, threaten their human existence. And so the strategic implication is that leaders are going to have to recognize this, respond effectively to it. I kind of alluded to that. And your change management plans and timelines are going to have to be adjusted. You know, this is not going to be quick and easy. And trying to mandate it or dictate it from on high is pretty much going to be a losing proposition, in my opinion. And so, you know, in summary, you know, here are all the strategic implications, and we have some strategic questions. And so I'd like to open it up. I'm not looking at the chats. I don't know if there's a bunch of questions. And so if there are a bunch of questions, I'll take those instead, and I'll just highlight these. But what are the current constraints of CI? What new capabilities? How it impacts strategy? What kind of opportunities are there, and who's under threat? So, Annika, if you want, you can turn off the recording now. And Robin, why don't you tell me, should we